Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. We're having a little altercation about busyness. It's very busy at our house right now. If you follow me on Facebook, I just posted this morning. I have literally spent the last 3 days plus two plus hours this morning working to get registered to apply for government funding. I'm not sure it's worth it. Because I could do all this work and we still might not get it. Oh my gosh, the worst. Might be the worst thing I've ever had to do in this job. Whatever, what can you do? Let's focus on my carrot mug, Dr. Mary. How are you?
That's a nice carrot mug.
Thank you. All right. We're talking today about a slippery slope. And the slippery slope is boxed wine. So what's your thought on that, Dr. Mary?
Actually, my thought on it is I didn't actually have one until you brought up this conversation a few days ago, and I thought, oh, good God, that actually makes a lot of sense, but I'd never thought of it.
Boxed wine is dangerous.
Good. I was want to know which one of us wanted to get to the punchline. Yeah, why is it dangerous there, Dee Dee?
Because you can't tell how much you've drunk.
Yep.
And because it starts out quite heavy, it feels heavy for a while. So you can kind of trick yourself into thinking, well, I'm not having that much because the box is still heavy. Because you're used to the weight of a wine bottle. And this is 3.5 or so bottles of wine in a box. So it is a very different feel. And you really lose sight of the fact that you use the visual of how much you've drunk out of the bottle to help. Oh, I love when our neighbors mow the lawn during Daily Dose. I don't know if you can hear it. Maybe you can't.
That actually sounds like they're digging up the lawn.
It does. Anyway, if you depend on the visual of how much you've drunk, boxed wine doesn't give you that. And that can be very, very dangerous. Because you can drink a lot of wine before it dawns on you that you've drunk a lot of wine.
We had a couple of guests on, at least, one recently that said that they always made sure that they finished off a bottle of wine in front of people and then opened one.
Oh, that was Shannon Rose Jones talking about how she both actively opened a bottle in front of people, but also secretly opened bottles in front of people, or without people seeing it, so that it looked like she was always drinking out of the same bottle.
That form of denial is dangerous when you're drinking a box of wine, because no one will have a quick memory of how old the thing is.
It's true. I used to buy boxed wine because it's just so cheap. And as soon as Nikki Ness from Bernie's and Luna and Soul Avenue and other cool places, and a former guest of ours, as soon as Nikki sort of endorsed boxed wine for me, then I didn't feel bad serving it at parties. I didn't feel bad buying it. I mean, I never really felt bad buying it. But Boda Box is pretty okay cheap wine. So as I was buying it, it feels fun to have a box of wine in the refrigerator because it's super easy access. But holy buckets. There were almost every time I bought it. So I probably haven't really bought boxed wine in 2 years for myself. But I would always think I should put the date of when I bought this on the box so I can see how long it lasts me. And for whatever reason, I just never did. And perhaps it was because I didn't really want to know how quickly I may have been going through it. But dang, a box of rosé or a box of Sauvignon Blanc in the refrigerator is festive and easy. And I suffer a bit from this very funny thing of wanting to feel grown up, which at 48 and a half almost, I am certainly
I think you've
grown up.
Grown up pegged there.
But
you've got a 25-year-old son.
I do, yes, 25, ladies and gentlemen. But I think there's something about the casualness of boxed wine and sort of like that Yeah, I drink boxed wine. Are you going to judge me? I'm so cool. You're not going to judge me for drinking boxed wine. Like it feeds all of my own lifelong insecurities. First of all, you can imagine I was never cool. I don't think I've ever been cool. I doubt if I ever will be cool. Why are you looking at me so
Dude,
funny?
no, don't be taking.
What do you mean? This is live, Dr.
Well,
Mary.
no,
You need to speak.
You've always been. I consider you a rock chick. I was actually quite disappointed when I found out that this American woman I'd met was not a cheerleader because I thought I'd hit the mother load. But there you go.
Yeah, because I wasn't cool enough to be a cheerleader. You know,
Dude, I've been to one of your high school reunions. You could not have not been cool in high school.
anyway, this doesn't need to turn into a therapy session for me. The point is that there's something about, you know how, okay, I'm just going to stick with this theme because there's actually, I think, something to this, and maybe people watching will agree. You know how cool people do uncool stuff and somehow it's cool? That's what boxed wine is to me. Boxed wine is literally saying, yeah, I understand I could buy $30+ bottles of wine, but I don't. Because the uncool thing to do is to drink boxed wine. So I'm making it cool by doing it. Boxed wine absolutely conveys that for me. And it's not that
I mean, technically,
want.
it has a lower carbon footprint.
Well, there's that. Absolutely it does. It's not that I want to be cool, but it's also that I don't not want to be cool. Do you know what I'm saying? It really, I've never thought about this till right now, but boxed wine absolutely fulfills that for me. That I have sort of a devil-may-care thought about it, and that it's about the understanding that you would just have wine available. Well, okay. I know it probably does seem silly to you,
Well, no,
but you
it
grew
does-
up in
it does
such
and it
a
doesn't.
different cultural environment
Yeah.
around alcohol.
That's true.
I don't think you can ever really understand the mystique of alcohol, and maybe not for all Americans. Again, I go back to Shannon. So Shannon grew up in a household, in an environment where alcohol was a much more accepted norm. I grew up literally, I know I've said this to you, but literally we did not use cough syrup at my house because it might have alcohol in it. And it wasn't that it was ever said from a place of judgment. I mean, it certainly would have been, but we never talked about it. It was just like the same way I didn't grow up eating hot dogs or didn't grow up eating, canned peas. I also didn't grow up around alcohol, and it was just a given that that was just not part of my cultural understanding. So I have a very different, limited perspective on it, which helps explain why I was such a plank about you being an alcoholic. It also helps explain how you could shut me up from criticizing you by simply saying to me, what do you know? You didn't grow up around any alcohol. You have an overreaction to it because you don't know anything about it.
But I was also a plank about being an alcoholic too. So.
Oh, for sure. I'm not letting you off the hook. I'm just talking about from my perspective.
Let's keep this one real.
Oh yeah, there's plenty to keep you right on the hook about.
There's an interesting thing about boxed wine I just realised. I don't know if we've talked about this on Daily Dose before, but I talked to you and I had lunch with a friend of mine from AA. He's also a former guest of ours. And I was talking about this Johnny Walker Blue Label advert.
Oh, we have
and I
talked
know
about this a
I've
lot,
mentioned this advert before. They make it so sexy. You know,
Uh-huh.
it's Jude Law and whoever his name is, the French actor.
Yep.
And you know, they're having sportsman's bets for a bottle of this stuff. And he just said to me, isn't that ridiculous? He said, I didn't even buy glass bottles. I didn't. And I went, yeah, you buy the plastic one because you actually think it makes less noise. And he went, yes. And that is ridiculous. But that also goes into boxed wine too.
Here's why that's
You
not
can hide
ridiculous.
it. You can actually take it out the box and have that plastic bladder. You can hide that anyway.
It's true. Here's what's not ridiculous about going back to your drinking making less noise. We have a soda stream, which means we carbonate our own sparkling water.
Yes, it is the 70s in our house.
And the label, no, I'm sorry, the lid, unscrewing a lid of whiskey, bourbon, whatever the hell it was, and unscrewing the lid of the Soda Stream makes a very similar sound. And believe me, I woke up for every single unscrewing in our house for years. And I would think to myself, is he unscrewing the whiskey bottle or is he unscrewing the Soda Stream bottle? And I never knew. And it, multiple times a night, I would wake up to that. So it's really interesting, the stuff we think we're doing that's being so clever and so tricky, including drinking boxed wine. I mean, I'm not anti-boxed wine. It serves a great purpose. If you want wine at a picnic or at the beach, or if you want it for, because it is cheaper and it's okay wine, that's fine. That's fine. But I think you want to be wary of purchasing it for yourself.
Actually, there is a very sensible thing to bring that up. I have talked about this before, but it's the denial thing. It is part of the disease of addiction, that you can convince yourself that what you're saying is true even to yourself, so therefore you don't think you're lying. And it goes back to actually that thing I said about one of the first things we did when I went into rehab was you take one of those standard assessments, and then they said, well, do it again and not lie, and do it again and double it. I know this because I just remembered this as I've talked to a few people who said, oh, I used to drink a load of boxed wine, but then I used to consider myself that box was the bottle.
Oh wow, yeah, that box is almost 4 times the size.
How many bottles do you drink in a week? 1 or 2. It's only 2 a week. It was 2 boxes,
which is
wine.
8 bottles of wine.
Just
almost
8 bottles of wine.
Yeah,
but to you weren't lying because you had convinced yourself that the box was a bottle.
Wow. It's interesting. And, boy, I just keep thinking about how remarkable it is. So let's talk about the American Olympic runner. I can't think what her name is, but she was roundly expected to win a number of golds, and she's been removed from the team because she smoked pot. And then she admitted to it when she was questioned because she failed a drug test, which is super admirable that she just said, yes, I did. Her birth mother had died. She went into a tailspin. She smoked some pot, and now she's removed from the team. I want to know how many Olympians have been drinking during their training.
Yeah.
I've never smoked pot, so I can't speak to the efficacy of it. I can't speak to the addiction of it. I can't speak to the dangers or distinctions between that and alcohol. But I am here to say, how in the world have we decided that marijuana is illegal and dangerous, but alcohol isn't?
It's hardly a performance-enhancing drug.
Alcohol?
No.
Oh, performance enhancing. Right.
But neither's alcohol, actually. But yeah, but you're absolutely right.
But they're both likely performance decreasing drugs. And so why would one be legal and one would not?
I mean, for airline pilots, they call it an 8-hour, I think they refer to it as bottle to throttle, which is more stringent than driving a car. You have to literally, I think basically you have to have a 0.0 blood alcohol level, if you sensibly, like, have a couple of drinks at dinner, say, you can't drink, you need 8 hours after that last drink before you can legally fly a plane. But if you smoke a joint, there's no test to determine if that's 8 hours or not. It's just there, so it could be 2 days. So I think that was a bit of a harsh one.
Yeah, it absolutely was. But I just think boxed wine is an interesting phenomenon because I feel like 10 years ago, boxed wine was the equivalent to that corn mash stuff that really, really hardcore addicts drink. Like nobody who nobody who had any sort of self-respect was buying boxed wine 10 years ago.
Did they have 2020 over here?
I don't know.
It's like 20% alcohol with like grapefruit juice in it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like $3 a bottle.
Oh, okay. So anyway, or it's like Arbor Mist or those kinds of things. Like boxed wine was what teenagers drank because they were working their way up to real alcohol. And that is no longer the case. Today, boxed wine is very acceptable amongst regular people. I'm sure it's not acceptable amongst, super sophisticated people, but whatever. It's dangerous, and it is just something to be aware of. Don't let a box become your equivalent to a bottle. It is 4 times a bottle almost. So just be aware of it.
Yeah, and your initial point is very valid. It's difficult to gauge how much you're drinking, and it's easy if you are an alcoholic. Even if you want help, it's a hard thing to think about because you can put yourself in denial very easily.
Well, and last thing, then we'll hop off. If you have kids in your house, how in the world can you tell if they've been drinking? I mean, there are lots of ways for kids to doctor bottles and those kinds of things, but you can't really do anything with a box of wine. You can't add to it. So then it becomes complicated in that sense too. So it's something to think about. I'm not anti-boxed wine. I buy a lot of it for the Arts Partnership. And I'm happy to use it here in certain environments, but not just for myself. It's too dangerous. It's too easy to slide right down that slope. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.